Afternoon. Appreciate your being here. I'm so glad to have Senator Ben Cardin with me, who is our leader on the Foreign Relations Committee. You know, during the campaign, Donald Trump made a lot of promises to workers in Michigan and workers all across the country. And one of the things that was really important to us in Michigan is that he said, actually on November 9th, 2015, in the Wall Street Journal, that on day one of a Trump administration, he would have the U.S. Treasury Department designate China as a currency manipulator. And at the time, he said, this decision will trigger a series of actions that will start the process of imposing countervailing duties on cheap Chinese imports, defending American manufacturing, and preserving American jobs. This is an issue that I have been leading on and sponsoring legislation on for a number of years, and I was hopeful that he in fact was going to do that on day one. That would make a tremendous difference, not just to workers but to manufacturers in Michigan. Many of our auto manufacturers had deep concerns about the TPP as a result of the lack of enforceable mechanisms on currency manipulation in that agreement. But then the president, then on February 23rd, said again, China is, quote, the grand champion of currency manipulation. But even though we know there are about 5 million jobs that have been lost because of this unfair trade practice, he has not kept his promise to workers and manufacturers in Michigan. And today, we may know why. Today, China gave preliminary approval to 38 new trademarks, Donald J. Trump trademarks, on products, activities, businesses in China, after 12 years of battling in court by Donald Trump. My concern is, and I was shocked to actually read this, as he's now turning his back on the people of Michigan and across the country who deeply care about their jobs and combating unfair trade practices. He needs to keep his promises to our workers and manufacturers instead of financial promises to himself. Now we know, and there are multiple people who have weighed in on this, but I'll just quote a couple here as we look at connecting the dots. Dan Plain, a director at Simone IP Services, a Hong Kong intellectual property consultancy, said he has never seen so many applications approved so expeditiously. For all these marks to sail through so quickly and cleanly with no similar marks, no identical marks, no issues with specifications, boy, it's weird, he said. Given the impact Trump's presidency could have on China, Plain said he would be very, very surprised if other officials from the ruling Communist Party were not monitoring Trump's intellectual property interests. And then Richard Painter, who served as chief ethics lawyer for President George W. Bush, said, the volume of new approvals raises red flags. A routine trademark, patent, or copyright from a foreign government is likely not an unconstitutional emolument, but with so many trademarks being granted over such a short time period, the question arises as to whether there is an accommodation in at least some of them. It is impossible not to raise questions about what is going on when this president said on day one that he would call China to task, he would protect American jobs, and call on them, name them as a currency manipulator. And now, here we are in March, and we find out after 12 years of fighting in court, he all of a sudden is getting 38 trademarks to put his name on businesses and products all over China. Is there a connection? Difficult to say that there is not. Before turning this over to Senator Cardin, Senator Feinstein had hoped to be with us today and could not. She cares deeply about this as well and asked me to read a short statement. The news that China may now grant 38 more trademarks to benefit President Trump shows the floodgates are open on foreign efforts to curry favor. This is exactly what the Constitution's Emoluments Clause was designed to prevent, and President Trump is blatantly defying it. It's appalling that the president refuses to address this crystal clear conflict of interest. He should immediately divest and create a blind trust, and he must be transparent about his business interests. Instead, we're seeing a president who appears eager to leverage his office for personal gain. It's time for Republicans in Congress to join our efforts to hold President Trump accountable. The Constitution demands it, and the American people deserve it. Turn this over now to one of our great leaders in the Senate, Senator Cardin.
Well, let me thank Senator Stabenow for her leadership on this issue and so many other issues that she points out about whether President Trump is doing his own business or the people's business is a matter of grave concern, not just to the people of Michigan and Maryland and California, but to all of our country. So I very much applaud your efforts on this. During the lame duck session in 2016, I introduced a resolution calling upon President-elect Trump to comply with the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution by doing what every modern president has done, and that is divest of your personal holdings or set up a blind trust. I was joined by many of my colleagues in that effort. I have refiled the bill in this Congress on March the 2nd with 32 of my colleagues that have filed with me on this resolution calling upon the President to comply with the Constitution of the United States. Now, this is not just some theoretical problem, as we've seen in the case of China. We could, by the way, mention other countries in which there is likely to be concerns about government favors being done for Trump enterprises. But here in China, we were alerted to this problem on February the 24th, when we got word that China was going to grant a trademark to Trump organization that they were trying to get for 10 years. I wrote a letter on February 27th with Senator Feinstein and Reid to Secretary of State Tillerson, alerting that this seems to be a situation where China may be trying to curry favor with the Trump administration by granting a trademark that was not being acted on. We know how the Chinese government operates. This is not an open democratic society. This is a controlled country where the political leadership make all important decisions. So granting this trademark to the President of the United States was clearly cleared through the highest sources within the Chinese government, because that's how they operate on matters like this. They're trying to curry favor to the President of the United States. Now, and by the way, that decision to issue that trademark was just a few days after President Trump announced that he would reaffirm the One China policy, something that China wanted. During the campaign, he questioned, as President-elect, he questioned the One China policy with his conversations with the Taiwanese. So is there a connection that a few days after he reinforces the One China policy, his financial organization receives a trademark that they were trying to get for 10 years? Now he's getting, as has been reported, 38 new trademarks to the Trump organization they were trying to get for 12 years. All of a sudden, this is being given to the Trump organization. At the same time, Secretary Tillerson's traveling to China. He's not traveling alone. Jared Kushner is going to be with him, a member of the Trump family. Trump family, his children are running the enterprise. This is not what is required by the office of the president. This is setting up just too many coincidences in which a foreign government may very well be currying favor with the Trump administration by giving gifts, which is directly contrary to the Constitution, Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8, which reads, "No person holding any office of profit or trust under the United States shall, without the consent of Congress, accept any present, emolument, office, or title of any kind, whatever, from any king, prince, or foreign state." The President Trump is compromising the integrity of the office of the president. And it's absolutely essential that he divest or set up a blind trust of his assets in order to protect the integrity of that office. And we urge him to do that, and we're deeply concerned about the activities in China and also in other countries.
Thank you so much. Let me just also indicate that Secretary Mnuchin now, the Secretary of the Treasury, has now said we're not making any judgments on China yet, after the president has said they were the grand champion of currency manipulation. This is really where the rubber meets the road for us in manufacturing and working men and women in Michigan. And it's stunning to me for all of the reasons that Senator Cardin talks about that go to the broader issues of conflict of interest and integrity of the presidency of the United States. And in the real world of jobs for us, for him to promise day one to name China as a currency manipulator and then to turn around because of his own personal financial interests, which he shouldn't even have because he should have all of his businesses in a blind trust, he turns his back on working men and women in Michigan. And I found that outrageous. Happy to take questions. Yes.
Many economists agree that China has not participated in currency manipulation since about early 2014. Why then should the Trump administration name China a currency manipulator if it has not been doing that for roughly 3 years?
Well, first of all, we know they have a history of currency manipulation. We know they are involved in various ways with their currency in an ongoing way. And for me, the big question is, why did the President of the United States promise the workers and the manufacturers in Michigan that he would do this and then break his promise?
Is it possible he was just presented with new information Mnuchin might have caught his ear?
China does not allow their currency to float. They do control it. There is manipulation.
Yeah, no question. And I would say that the same day that Secretary Mnuchin said we're not making any judgments on China is the same day that President Trump said China is the grand champion of currency manipulation. So our question is, why all of a sudden, after making this promise so clearly, is he suddenly backing up on this? And surprise of all surprises, he's now getting 38 more trademarks in China for businesses and products. I find the whole thing stunning. All right, well, thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Good work.
Yeah, thanks.